Alright, now getting back into this, I got into a rant, right? Sorry, I get carried away. It's okay. Now, moving on from this, right? If, by the way, if you have time, go check out this video here. It was quite caught a stir a few years ago in the Super Bowl. It's a Coca-Cola ad with America the Beautiful, and it was sung in different languages, and I kind of want to know what you think about that, because some people are like, oh, that's America the Beautiful, you don't mess with it. Other people are like, I think it's gorgeous. And so I kind of want to know what you think about that. Maybe we'll do that here in a minute, all right? Before we get into that, I do want to talk about this. Our American culture is a mix. It's a melting pot of Chinese, Irish, Italian, Mexican, Russian history. You don't believe me? Check it out. 4th of July, correct? What do we use? Fireworks. Guess who invented fireworks? Chinese. We also believe in St. Patrick's Day, in which we celebrate wearing green, etc. That is an Irish holiday, correct? The Italians. How many pizza restaurants or Italian food places around? Because Italian. Same thing goes with Mexican and Cinco de Mayo. Same thing with Russian. And so it mixed and it made this great American culture, correct? So the melting pot theory is the idea where you have many ethnicities, nationalities, and they blend together and create something new. That'd be the American, right? Here's another idea of the melting pot, right? Showing you coming in. Now, there does exist a different kind of concept of this, and that is the idea of cultural plurality. All right, plurality means more than one, correct? This is the idea where the cultures don't necessarily blend to make a new one, but rather they group themselves. If you've seen the show Daredevil on Netflix or anything like that, he fights in an area called Hell's Kitchen, and it was just a bad place to be. Now the reason being is the Russians had their own little area, and the Chinese had their own little area, their cultural enclave, if you will. And so what happens there is they don't necessarily melt, but there's a multitude of cultures, and we allow it to happen. And if you go into their little area, you have to kind of reside by their rules. And so that's the idea. Now, ready for this one? And so there is a cultural enclave of Los Angeles County in 2000, and so you have all these Hispanics, blacks, Anglo-Saxons, no majority, and so they're kind of mixed. They have their own little ethnic, right? API, by the way, is American Pacific Islander. That'd be like Tongans or Samoans and different things. And you can see how they're grouped, right? Look at the Hispanics here and look at this stuff here. No majority here. You have the black neighborhoods of Englewood, Watts, Compton, etc. You have the white neighborhoods. They're mainly around here. And so you can tell how they're grouped, correct? This is cultural plurality, all right? That's not saying they're all there, it's just majority, okay? So relax. Now, there exists in this concept of what is called nativism, all right? And nativism is the concept that who is native here should be the right. This is the America speak American, that idea. So nativism is an extreme fear of other cultures because you're afraid of losing a job and losing security, whatever it might be, okay? Now this is actually just kind of weird because we all came from somewhere else. And so you can see right here, right, some nativist ideas. We have Chinese Exclusion Act. We have where we excluded the Irish. We have Jim Crow. And then we also have Si Se Puede, which is talking about the Hispanics. So nativism is a fear or a dislike of other cultures because we're there. Now, the major nativist group, and here they come, right, are the KKK. They actually had this slogan, right? America for Americans. Well, that's just ridiculous, all right? But it is nonetheless there. So KKK is the largest nativist group. It wasn't just African Americans they disliked Jews. They disliked anybody who is not WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, meaning white came from Anglo-Saxon, and that would be England for you people, and then Protestant. If you didn't fit all four of those categories, you ended up on their hate list. And so out they come with their Casper the Not So Friendly Ghost costume, and they're going to come to your house, okay? Now, beneath KKK and everything there, you have a thing that says Americanization. Americanization is another assimilation. It's where you drop your culture and become like Americans. Uh, Now, this next thing just made me laugh, right? America is for Americans, period. I agree. Why don't you go back to Europe? Just kind of funny because the Native Americans that were here, we pushed on reservations, and then we came up and said, you can't be here unless you're American. Well, that's very contradictory, correct? So Americanization is assimilation, not melting pot, not cultural plurality, but dropping it entirely and becoming like something else. Now, a couple of things we need to talk about in nativism. The first is, how did the Chinese get here? All right. First off, China has a lot of people, correct? So the Chinese were brought here to build the railroads because they would work for, come on, longer hours and cheaper pay. It's the name of the game. Who's going to make more money? However, in 1892, once the railroads are completed, Transcontinental Railroad, everyone begins to fear, not them, but fearing losing their jobs. And so Congress passes what is called the Chinese Exclusion Act. And a couple of little cartoons, right? The first one, and you had that one, then you had this one here. Chinese wall around the United States of America. They built it, and now we throw it down, right? That wall, what made America great and protected them, and then we throw them down, correct? So what is the whole idea of the Chinese Exclusion Act? It is to limit or exclude unskilled Chinese from coming into this country because of nativist fears of losing a job. Now, the last little cartoon is probably my favorite one here. We have Uncle Sam, right? And you can see Uncle Sam is protesting against Russian exclusion of Jewish Americans. But you heard the term skeleton in the closet, right? And so we have skeleton of the American exclusion of Chinese. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? And so there that is with that. Now, the Chinese were excluded. The Japanese, however, were put in one little tiny area. Remember the cultural enclaves, cultural plurality, right? In San Francisco, they said, you stay right here on this one little thing. Now, what happened is that in 1906, there was a massive earthquake of San Francisco. And guess who it affected? The bad area of town where we put the Japanese. And so the Japanese were actually contemplating coming to this country and actually fighting. And that's crazy. Now, the Japanese are very confident because they just whipped Russia a few years prior, and so they're going to come here. Now, to prevent this from happening, Teddy Roosevelt will go, of course, to the Japanese and issue what is called a gentleman's agreement. So this is supposed to be Roosevelt here. This is supposed to be here. We have the schoolyard, San Francisco, the Japanese, etc. And he's going and apologizing. So what's the idea of the gentleman's agreement? The gentleman's agreement says the United States will not restrict where the Japanese can live if the Japanese limit their own immigration here. In other words, don't make us have to pass an exclusion act. You do it there, and then you can live wherever you want to. And so luckily it went off without a hitch. Now at the same time in Oklahoma, we have a land rush. People are, again, going through the Great Plains. This time we're going through the reservations, correct? And we are grabbing up this land. And the whole idea is every immigrant wanted to have their own land, going back to that Homestead Act. And I know this is kind of all blending together and stuff we talked about, but it should, okay? And so there we have Americanization, right? As we've talked about it. It's where you lose all your culture and to become American, right? And so here are some things that maybe are truly American. We have Starbucks, we have Michael Jordan, McDonald's, the rise of baseball, Pepsi, freedom, liberty, Iwo Jima flag raising. There is an American culture. It, however, was based off everyone else coming here. That's what makes us great. So please go back and watch that video and tell me what you think, if you agree with it or not. Now, I do want you to answer a couple things here. Give examples of why nativism rose. Why did nativism come about? I want you to compare the idea of melting pot with cultural plurality. Go back and listen. And finally, if you had to go and explain the Chinese Exclusion Act, like if you were late to mom and you start with, see what had happened was, that's what I want. I want to see what had happened was with the Chinese Exclusion Act, all right? We'll pick up here. We're going to talk about the last little bit here. We're almost done with this. We're going to talk about urbanization tomorrow and what happened once they got to the cities.